Good afternoon. I'm Beth VanStory, Area Managing Partner with Chief Outsiders, and I'm going to be your moderator today. We have one of our new CMOs, Deborah Overdeput, and Dan Lackner, one of our new CSOs, here to talk about ChatGPT. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I've got some questions, and we'll take questions from the audience. Please put your questions into the comments area, and I will be watching those, and we'll bring them up towards the end of our session. So Deborah, ladies first, why don't we let you give a brief intro of yourself?
Thank you, Beth, and I'm real excited to be here with you and Dan. So I have 20 years of marketing leadership experience, primarily in the financial services technology space, technology and consulting services. I'm a fractional chief marketing officer with Chief Outsiders, and I focus on helping companies grow. Companies engage me to help lift flat or stagnant sales. Basically, I come in when they're looking to capture new opportunity and help them get to the next stage in their growth cycle. I build awareness, I drive demand, and really it's all about filling the sales funnel. I'm excited to be here to share with you my ideas and thoughts around ChatGPT and how to use it.
All right, speaking of filling the sales funnel, let's move over to our Chief Sales Officer, Dan Lackner.
Yeah, hi everybody. Again, my name is Dan. I'm a Chief Sales Officer. I've got 30 plus years in sales leadership with both large and small software companies. I've also worked for many large consumer data companies, companies like Information Resources, Comscore, and Axiom. The focus of my projects today is really helping companies implement high velocity recurring revenue models to help them drive more predictable revenue streams. Thanks for having me, Beth.
You're welcome. So we're going to jump right in here. I'm going to ask this of Deborah first. Just Deborah, in short, kind of what excites you the most about ChatGPT and other generative AI technology products that are kind of new on the market here?
Yeah, so wow. I think we're just starting to figure out what to do with it, but it's really exciting times. There's so many different benefits, but one that really comes to me the most is the benefit of time savings. It really helps to make you more efficient, and you can use it in a variety of different ways, like market research, find out like a little bit more about your target audience, competitors, industry trends. You can look at creating content, which I think is what a lot of people have started to use it for. And you can do anything from topic suggestions, research materials, write a book, an outline of that, write blogs, social post updates, email campaigns. You can also use it for strategy development, sentiment analysis, really trying to understand what's going on in a press release and if you're getting the right tone across, and then problem solving or brainstorming. So lots of different ways to use it, and it's very exciting. It's all new.
Great. I know you're going to get into some details in a little bit. Dan, just from a high level for sales, what excites you the most as a person out there selling?
Yeah, so I think there's applications for tools like this at every stage of the demand funnel, from the very top of the funnel when you're trying to build awareness, all the way down to close won opportunities and beyond when these customers become customers for life. So for instance, take the top of the funnel. Reps are always looking to scale their outreach efforts, and ChatGPT and tools like this are a great way for jumpstarting the process of creating more compelling emails with better, more enticing subject lines, and doing it very, very quickly. Think about the middle of the funnel. There's so many customers that reps are dealing with these days that reps often struggle trying to be relevant to the customers, and they just kind of run out of time. And so tools like this can help them understand the challenges that are facing a customer in their particular industry and incorporate them into their value propositions. And then finally, at the bottom of the funnel, helping with proposals, helping you take the good content of that proposal and quickly turn it into an executive summary. And then finally, even sales tips at the end. So objection handling. You're working with a customer. The customer says their price is too high. What do? Well, ask ChatGPT. It'll give you some great opportunities to rebut that.
Great. So again, everybody, we're going to get into some very specific examples later, but want to make sure we have a balanced view. So Dan, can you talk a little bit about, we hear a lot of the hype and the positives. We're seeing some of the articles out there, the negatives and the scary things. What do you see as the key risks or downside from let's stick with content creation from that perspective?
Sure. So here's what I suggest you do. Ask ChatGPT to write an email from you, then ask it to write a second email for you. And you'll quickly see that they can be a bit sort of formulaic in nature. It's not that they're bad, not at all. The grammar is terrific and the structure of what they produce is terrific as well. But they do come across as being a little bit heartless. So if you just copy and paste that output into an email, I think there's a risk that the reader might see through you and question your commitment to their business and your commitment to learning more about them. So if you're going to do a tool like use a tool like this, it's important to regard the output as a starting point, not the finish point, and making sure that you bring the heart back into that email and that content.
And Deborah, I know you have a couple things to let people beware of as well on ChatGPT. So what are some of the risks and downsides that you've seen?
Yeah, sure. So I would just say to start, right? ChatGPT was trained on a large amount of text data, right? And that data only goes up to 2021, which means it doesn't have that much knowledge for the world after that. And that means it's a little bit limited. So it can provide misinformation because of that and inaccuracies, because not all the data it was fed to is potentially factual, right? Because we don't know what's out in the world. And then also because it doesn't go beyond 2021 and things change. We know that, right? So one of the things I did for a test is I asked it to give me the current trends for the teenage age group. And it said it came back immediately and said, can't provide current trends, but it could give me the trends for up to 2021. So any new trends, changes in the world will not be recognized in ChatGPT, right? So I would be a little bit careful about that. But the other thing is it has a potential for bias, some bias like political bends. And it also has the ability, like I said before, a little bit of misinformation. So you have to be a little bit careful if you're using it to write something and that you want to really be able to check your facts and the details.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Dan, back to just a little bit more specific. If you were talking to a salesperson today who wanted to get started with this, what would be your tips for just, here's what you want to do out of the blocks. Here's how you should get started.
Yeah, the answer is pretty simple. Simple is just do it. But do it on your own time when you can concentrate and you're not distracted. If you're like the sales reps I work with, over the course of the day, there's distractions coming from you all sorts of different directions. The thing that's important about ChatGPT and tools like this is you have to have a conversation with the tool. And if you're constantly being interrupted and sidelined by some other priority, you're not going to be able to carry on a conversation, just like you're not be able to carry on a conversation with a friend of yours. So spend some time, some quiet time, learning how to use the tool. And the key about learning how to use the tool is learning how to structure your prompts. Prompts are nothing more than open probe or closed probe questions that you're asking. So it's like a conversation, and the conversation is give and take. You give something, you ask a question, it comes back with a response. You refine your question, you perfect your question, you change the probe slightly, and you go back and forth. And then take some time to take the response, the final, let's say it's an email you've asked for. Ask it to turn it into a LinkedIn post. Ask it to turn that LinkedIn post into a tweet. Ask it to turn that tweet into a subject line for an email. And you'll see the stream of consciousness that's created through this entire process and how you can leverage all those different components.
It's so cool. It's almost like just having a content creation assistant right at your side, huh?
Exactly. And it never runs out of suggestions either.
Okay. So it sounds super easy. But I know, Deborah, you have some guidance in terms of misperceptions about really how easy it is. Is it that easy, and what to watch out for there?
You know, it is easy, but I think there's a big misconception of the fact that it just writes for you. And I think Dan kind of made mention of this a little bit before, in that it's great and useful in generating a first draft. But sometimes the phrasing can feel a little bit robotic. It can be repetitive. I've seen when I've created some things through it, set the same sentence appearing 2 or 3 times in a period of a little short content. So think of it as more of an AI assistant and not an AI writer. So be careful about, like I said earlier, misinformation or lack of information, but also make sure to act as the editor. Verify what you have written. make sure that it's not biased, but also that the data is correct. If it's used data, augment it a little bit. If there's something that's been created from it, think of yourself as the editor that's going to go in and put the truthfulness behind the what has already been written. So stats, data, anything that would support what you've created. And then remember, your content is used to build trust with your audience, especially in the marketing world. So keep that in mind when using tools like ChatGPT in order to use them in the right way effectively.
And so speaking of the right way, you and I had a session a couple months ago in preparation for our national meeting, and you sort of blew my mind because I hadn't experimented with it at that time. And I asked you to put in a prompt to help write a blog article for one of my clients. And it was pretty mind blowing how fast it did that and how much information it gave. You said at that time that you had written 16 blogs for a client, which was kind of exhausting sounding to me, but maybe you could just walk people through about how you did that. So what your approach was, maybe what one or two of your prompts were, how you refined your prompts, because really like for our listeners today to walk away with hopefully ChatGPT a little bit demystified and ready to try it out themselves. So let's take it one level lower into the detail. And Deborah, maybe you can just tell us about how you use it, how you've gone about.
Yeah. So, one of my clients, definitely needed some content for SEO, and we needed to really figure out what that content would look like and how we could create it very quickly. So I decided to play a little bit with ChatGPT to develop that content. And things that I did to create the 16 blogs, and literally 16 blogs, if I had tried to create this on my own, would have taken a lot of time, like hours, many hours, probably a couple of days, right? Maybe even more than that. In this case, what I did is I went in and I just did some high level things, like this particular client is looking to serve, the offshore manufacturing arena. So I said, tell me what are the best practices for doing offshore manufacturing, or where are the top countries that I need to look at for offshore manufacturing. And so those two blogs, just writing that simple phrasing right into the actual prompt, gave me a blog, right? Of course, you have to preface it with, write me a blog around the top areas in the world for manufacturing offshore. Boom, there came a blog. So it was great. It created this raw content. I was able to look at it and augment a little bit. We posted the blogs regularly for a few weeks. And the great thing was that it did what I wanted it to do. What we needed was to increase website visits, and it managed to do that. But now, like, you can take all those blogs and potentially create an ebook from it. So what would have normally taken me forever to do literally took me a couple of hours, if even that. But I have another example that I think is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. I was talking to this agency about, how they would potentially go around using ChatGPT. And the man came back to me and he said, look, it's great for creating ideas for a tagline, right? So put into a prompt, say, give me a list of 10 taglines. But then he went a step further and said, using the writing style of Seth Godin, and noting that my superpower for my agency is this, and then this is what my positioning is. He hit enter. He got 10 really cool, great ideas for an initial tagline. And then he took those and he said, I like 1, 4, and 6. So take 1, 4, and 6 and redo the blog, make 10 more versions of this, but make the statements a little bit bolder. He got 10 more suggestions, right? Now I said, okay, so that's great. Would you use these? He goes, no, obviously this isn't the final product for the client. He says, but I just saved myself 2 or 3 hours for brainstorming in a room with a few other people. He goes, I just brainstormed very quickly on ChatGPT, and now I can move to refinement. So it's time savings, and it's definitely worth it. I mean, I would definitely give it a shot. It's fun to play with.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Before we jump to Dan, this just makes me think, I wish we could find a good writer who could come up with a plot and then have a book written in the style of Pat Conroy, who's my favorite author, but is deceased. Wouldn't that be awesome? That'd be so great. Anyway, I digress. Dan, let's have you talk a little bit about some of the other ways you're using ChatGPT outside of just creating emails.
Sure. Social media is a great opportunity as well. So anytime I'm on LinkedIn, I'm going to do a post or repost something that's been written. I like to put a little wrapper around it that reflects my personal comment and my take on that post. And I did that just this morning, as a matter of fact. A colleague of mine here at Chief Outsiders had just written and published an article on, what do you know, ChatGPT. And so what I did is I copy and pasted the entire article. And it was, several pages long, into ChatGPT. And I prefaced it and said, write an edgy comment that I can use with this LinkedIn article post. And so I fed it into ChatGPT. And let me tell you what it responded with. It said, trusting but verifying becomes essential in this new world. So let's not forget the importance of human creativity, originality, and authenticity in our content, end quote. So
Wow.
if that's not a perfect summary, not just of the article, but the whole usage and the risks associated with ChatGPT and other tools like it, I don't know what is. I think it was a great response.
Was that Michael Tanner's article, by the way?
Yes, it was. Exactly.
Yes. So if people are interested in learning more, you can go to the Chief Outsiders LinkedIn page and look for the article by Michael Tanner on ChatGPT. He's got some more detail there. So in this whole world of AI, there's a lot of other tools, not just ChatGPT. So Dan, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the other tools. I know there's a particularly fun one you're going to share with people, but talk about some of the other tools that are AI based that you're using.
Yeah, so AI tools have actually been around for quite a while. A lot of them made their way into Salesforce automation systems. So for instance, Salesforce has something called Einstein that takes all the data associated with all the deals in your pipeline, and it looks for markers and better ways to predict outcomes. Other companies, HubSpot, other CRM companies have started to implement similar sort of AI-based sales forecasting as well. And that's terrific. The other one I played with as well, and it also comes from OpenAI, is DALL-E. And DALL-E is the corollary to ChatGPT. And what it does, it helps you create digital images through prompts. So instead of asking for an email, you say, boy, give me a picture of two children riding in the car with a laptop computer while their mom is driving the car. And it creates a beautiful digital image that you can drop right into a program, an email, whatever, and without paying any royalty. So it's all royalty free. So there's no notion of having to pay a royalty fee associated with it.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with DALL-E, it's DALL-E. So check it out. It's really fun. I know that for our national meeting, my co-presenter created some really fun types of things. In fact, she did, I think it was looking at a CMO and doing it in an impressionist style. So you also can bring in, instead of tone, it would be the visual piece. So you could do things different ways, which can make it a lot of fun. And also, I think, what strikes me here, I'm just thinking out loud, is when you're trying to build a new website and you want to have images in a similar type of style, this would be one way to do that. Before we go over to Deborah, I do want to note there's some really helpful comments by a couple experts in ChatGPT on the side. So take a look at those. And please, if you do have questions, now is a good time to put them in the comments because we're almost finished with our prepared area. So just be sure to look at the comments for a couple other ideas about the advancements of ChatGPT and accuracy. And there's Midjourney is also an amazing image generator. So be sure to check out those comments. Okay, so we'll move over to Deborah and for you to talk about some of the other AI tools that you've used.
Yeah, so there's a number of them out there. And I think what's really interesting is what people don't understand is a lot of these are based off of OpenAI, which is the tech that underpins ChatGPT. So there's another solution out there called Jasper. Jasper goes probably a little bit further on refining the content than ChatGPT does. So if you're really looking to get a little bit further in your content generation, Jasper might be a great tool for you. Of course, Jasper costs money, whereas ChatGPT is free. So you might want to consider what that means for you. I know also HubSpot recently announced that they've offered a new solution called ChatSpot. AI, and that one is to help create content, social posts, and a whole bunch of other things and within the HubSpot arena. So that's a really cool thing to do too. If you have HubSpot, maybe something you can try out. But there's so many other solutions that are out there, and there's new ones coming all the time. And I have to tell you, I haven't tried them all, but there's some that really intrigue me, like ones that, like Dan said, create an image for you, right? Generate a perfect stock photo for you. Create an Amazon listing for you if that's what you're interested in doing. It can create songs, which I think is really interesting. I know I've been able to get ChatGPT to create poems for me, as well as some really interesting text using different styles of writers, but never thought about creating a song. So there's different ways that you can use it. I love all the different ideas that are coming out. I really would take time to just explore a little bit of, Jasper and ChatGPT if you have a chance to do a free trial with Jasper and kind of compare the two and see how you feel. Like, do you want to try something that's free and you're going to be able to edit, or would you like something more refined and go down the Jasper route? So those are the two ideas.
And I'd like to just build on that just a second. I think what you're going to see very, very quickly is that more and more often ChatGPT and tools like this are going to be embedded in applications. So instead of interacting with sort of the raw product like ChatGPT or DALL-E, instead you'll be interacting with an application, and underpinning the application will be one of these tools. So it's going to make it much more seamless. You're going to see it show up in a lot of different places. I was just looking this morning and I saw some wonderful applications where people were using ChatGPT inside Excel. And I think that's a great example of how these applications are going to surface to make common tasks simpler, but in a much more seamless way.
Yeah, I would agree. And literally, I love Michael Rosenberg's comment here, where it's an interesting approach, right? To get an output from Jasper and then ask ChatGPT if they think the copy is good. I mean, they built landing pages in Jasper and then improved it by getting ChatGPT's suggestion on it. So that's also another great way of doing things. So there's definitely a lot of different ways that you can use the two tools, or all the tools that are out there. I think it's worth just exploring them.
Very cool. And Michael talks about some other cases here, but I'm going to turn to the other VanStory on the line, Kristen VanStory. She is related, in case you guys were wondering. She has a question here. So whoever wants to answer this one: how does ChatGPT handle and respond to sensitive or confidential information, and what steps are taken to ensure data privacy and security? Anyone an expert on that? And if there's someone out in the audience who is too, feel free to type comments in here on the right.
I would say that I've seen some comments on that and some topics on that where you really, the information that's being put in there is being shared, right, with the internal people at ChatGPT to kind of view. So you're going to see on the side when you actually put in a ChatGPT on ChatGPT, if you enter a prompt, you're going to actually see that it's storing that data. You can erase that and let go of the history, but they are going to be looking at that to see whether or not how the system is working. And obviously, the more the system is used, the more it's learning. So it's learning from everything that you're putting in there. So I don't know. I think I would be a little bit careful about putting anything in that's sensitive or proprietary or confidential at this time.
Yeah, and that's what some of the other folks in the chat are saying. I think this actually leads into another question that I have, which is, who are you following? There's so much being written right now. There's so many webinars. There's so many videos. Who are you following right now to keep up with what's going on? Who do you see as some of the most credible, visionary thinkers in this space? Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. You think that you would learn, but I learned from all the interactions I have with people when I'm on the phone with them. So it's a variety of different people in a variety of different ways. So if I get in a conversation with somebody, I automatically ask them, have you used ChatGPT and what do you think of it? And I am so surprised at the level of people that I'm talking to. Now, I first learned about ChatGPT by another chief outsider who used it to write an AI article. And then I met a CEO who said something similar about ChatGPT and how he tried it out. And it got me really wondering, what is this thing? I got to see what this thing does. And so I started trying it myself. And now whenever I have a conversation with somebody, I kind of ask them what they're doing. But there are two great resources that I would say. One is Gartner is hosting a webinar on this on March 30th. So they generally put together some really great content. I would take a look at that. You can sign up for that on the Gartner website. And then the other thing is that go to YouTube and put in a search around how to use ChatGPT. You're going to be surprised at how many people have already created some content on that you can learn from. But I would say ask your neighbor as well. I think you're going to be surprised at how many people are actually using this.
Yeah. And Dan, any kind of pundits or analysts or people that you're following on this, or is it just, you're just seeing so much?
I think like Deb, you see it everywhere. You can't escape it pretty much. But I'll go back to and just amplify what she said about YouTube. There's so many terrific resources out on YouTube. I was looking around yesterday and I came across two different people who are using ChatGPT in conjunction with Excel. And they started out simply, just saying, well, how do I create a particular formula and embed it into an Excel spreadsheet? And it was a simple formula, just adding a row of numbers. But by the end of this, I think it was a 3-minute video, they had trained ChatGPT to create an invoice from 2 columns of data and automatically send out emails. And that was in a 2-minute video. So you can just see the power that you can get from these tools.
And would you say, would you guys agree that YouTube might be a good place to just, as a beginner, to just go and watch a couple videos and see people type in prompts and things like that? Because I know I didn't have YouTube. I had Deborah Overdeput showing me how to do that. So would that be the kind of thing that you would search for, is sort of just a basics of how to?
Yeah. And I also think, don't be afraid. Like, get an account and go in and ask it a question like you were talking to somebody. Something that you just want to test on, and then you're going to see, and then you can go to YouTube and get a little bit more detailed on how to refine your question or how to refine your point of view, something that you're trying to get done with ChatGPT. So I'd say try it and then maybe learn a little bit on the side.
Yep. And I'm just going to put this note up so it's captured in the video from one of our attendees here. It's got an expert from their company, so we'll leave that up for a second. Other questions? Does anyone have other questions? All right. Well, then we will keep it nice and short, and we will wrap up. One last call for questions. I'm going to give it about 10 seconds. All right. Thank you all for being here. And I want to thank the guests, Dan Lackner, Chief Sales Officer, and Deborah Overdeput, Chief Marketing Officer. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here.